Thad Brown, Caleb Carr, Rachel Liebert here with you on Bill's BKL Nightly. Excuse me, I do have so many shows. I try to keep them all straight. We are here on a Thursday, getting ready for the Bills and the Saints. It's a titanic matchup, I know. We'll talk about that for sure. We'll get into Jackson Hawes, the legend that is growing, and also the great debate that is shaping Bills fans right now. Kansas City or Baltimore. We'll explain what all that means in a little bit. But guys, let's start with the injury situation. Actually, got some good news today because Ed Oliver was at Bills practice today, not in a walking boot. That's the big thing. He has been in a walking boot every time we've seen him up until today, but today he was out there watching his teammates. You know, certainly not practicing. He was an official, did not practice. But good news for the Bills, getting Oliver at least out of the boot. There's progress being made. I'd be stunned if he plays this weekend for a lot of reasons, but at least the idea that he's only going to miss 3 games and probably will be back for the game next week, Sunday night against the Patriots, seems to be very likely. Speaking of the injury report, let's get right to that. Here is all the names on the list for the Bills today, and it really is a short list, even though there's a higher than preferred number of did not practices on there. Oliver, we told you about. Matt Milano, still not at practice with the pectoral injury. From all reports, was not seen at practice today. Spencer Brown did not practice, was not out on the field, but I can say I saw him in the locker room yesterday. Didn't seem to be in any sort of distress. I don't know if he plays this weekend, but I don't think that's a long-term injury concern. And then A.J. Epinesa did at least practice in a limited fashion today. So, guys, let's talk about the injury situation in general here, and I think in particular the Ed Oliver, Matt Milano situation. Look, all these discussions are going to be kind of caveated, if that's a word, with the game that's upcoming against the Saints. It doesn't seem like much of a threat, but, you know, Caleb, I'll start with you. How much of a concern are we at with maybe more so Milano than Oliver, but really either guy, if you want to talk about?
I'm not really concerned about either of them. Like you just said, I think if this was a bigger game, you know, if these past few games really have been a bigger stretch of games, you know, throwing at Baltimore, a Kansas City, you know, these high conference games, or even just some tough games against like Detroit maybe. Like if these were some bigger games, I think they'd be out there. I think they'd be pushing it. If this was end of the season, you know, playoff push, if this was the playoffs, they would be out there. So I'm really not that concerned. I think it's a good thing that, you know, with these two guys, that if an injury has to happen, then it's happening now when you have these kind of quote unquote easy. It's the NFL, it's never easy, but these easier stretch of games. So I'm not really too concerned. I'm actually quite glad that they hopefully don't play and that they will be even better, even more ready come next week.
I think we talked about in the BKL Nightly mailbag yesterday that, you know, being 3-0 is a part of the equation here. When you kind of have earned some leeway, you can slow play guys who seem to be injured. You know, Rachel, where do you land with the injury stuff so far?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, just like Caleb said, this is a good time for injury, there's no good time for injury, but at this point in the season, especially with Ed Oliver, I mean, Matt Milano is someone that he's been injured. He's been on and off injured. We haven't seen production from him
for years
in a while.
Yeah.
So I lean more toward the Ed Oliver of how much of an impact does his absence make. And I mean, I do, you know, you wish he wasn't injured, but at the same time, they're playing the Saints. This is a game where I think he should sit out, and that's kind of the direction it seems it's heading. But it is a good sign that he's out of the walking boot and seems to be making that progress. So I guess all things considered, this seems to be the good path of Ed Oliver's return back to this team and back to playing potentially next week.
Yeah, Ed Oliver, I agree with you. I feel good about him. And I think the other part of it, too, is separate of the opponent. This is the right play for a team that is worried about January, not, you know, September, October. You know, these are the games you want to sit these guys down for if you have to. So because the Bills have not used injured reserve, one would think this can't be more than a 4-game injury for either guy, you know, barring some sort of weird setback. So I think even though neither guy will probably play this weekend, I think signs are certainly pointed up for both of them so far. All right, the big storyline from the Bills side this week has been the growing legend of Jackson Hawes. And I just want to skip to the credits here. So Jackson Hawes is clearly the best draft pick in the history of the Buffalo Bills. He's the greatest player ever and will now go down as one of the legends. I mean, they should already be making a gold jacket for him right this second. That's basically what we get out of this week with Jackson Hawes. And look, we joke because, you know, some of this is our doing. in the media about, making this part of the story this week. But the other part is that the guy's been really dang good. And, Deion Dawkins talked today about Hawes. And not only did he talk about how good Hawes has been, but he thinks that Jackson Hawes, of all people, is making the rest of the team around them even better.
Makes everybody block better, even us, because we look at him and even Chrome in meetings, and he'll say, "Oh, look at Hawsey, there goes Hawsey," and you used to see Hawsey taking somebody from here all the way past. We're like, that was a DN, right? Not just a skinny guy, that's a DN, and it's a reflection on Dawson, Reggie, all of those guys. It's a reflection on all of them. I think everybody on this team is making everybody better. And it's scary because they're like, you have a lot of guys on the team that aren't that super household solidified name, but everybody is making everybody better.
I tend to agree with what Deion said about Hawes' ability is making at least the tight ends block better, because Dalton Kincaid is having by far his best year as a blocker. It ain't even that good. He's just like, once a game he knocks down a safety or something. That's still an improvement for him. And when you hear Deion talk about it, though, that the offensive line coach is in the room pointing out to this offensive line who is already pretty well accomplished. It's not like this is a bad O-line. This might be one of the top 2 or 3 O-lines in the NFL. And he's up there saying, "Oh, look at this rookie." That is, I would think, Rachel, a motivating chip for this offensive line, at least a little bit.
For sure. I mean, when Jackson Hawes was drafted, I don't think anybody expected this to be his role. I mean, he is known for being this blocking tight end, and that's certainly what he's been doing up until this point. But I mean, you have to imagine hearing it from Deion Dawkins, who I would say is the leader on the O-line. It's got to make him feel good. It's got to add just this like mojo to the tight end room, especially a tight end room that we've said who is going to be the guy that steps up, and is it going to be Kincaid, or who is going to be like the playmaker? And so far, Jackson Hawes has been a playmaker in more ways than one, and just it's been cool to see. And just like you said, Deion Dawkins giving him all that praise, and like David Edwards yesterday was hyping him up as well. It's cool to see, and we're only 3 weeks in, so kind of what is the ceiling for Jackson Hawes, and I'm excited to see just where this goes. And as the competition gets higher too, just what is he going to do for this team? Well,
the other thing too is at some point, this guy's going to be on everybody's radar. The teams are going to start wondering or seeing that, 85 is something we got to deal with. And I will say that in the second half of the Miami game, I think it's Matthew Butler. He's a reserve defensive lineman. Don't know. He's actually played pretty well. You might start hearing about him soon. But there was a play where Hawes pulled right into Butler. And Hawes was just doing his thing, about to make a block. And you could tell Butler had seen this a couple times. And like, I'm done with it. And he planted Hawes on his backside. The only block I've seen Hawes lose that badly all year long. It kind of could be a harbinger of, okay, it's about to get a little more real for a rookie who bursts on the scene. That being said, I'm not worried about Hawes. He's really that good of a player when you watch him on film. But, Caleb, if we're going to spin this into a worry at all, is there a level of, all right, well, everybody's talked him up. David Edwards, to Rachel's point, called him the best blocking tight end he's ever seen yesterday. This is pretty lofty for any rookie in game 3, no matter how ordinary or mundane his job might seem.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you look at the fact that, you've got the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Ravens. Are any of those teams really like these high quality, like top of the league defensive lines? The
or
Jets,
offensive lines, for that matter, you mean? Oh, no, I'm sorry, defensive lines. Yeah.
I think the
Jets are supposed to be okay, yeah.
But with the Dolphins and the Ravens, they're not really known, at least for their defensive lines.
The Ravens have Ahmad Abouike, who didn't play against Detroit on Monday night, but did play against the Bills and was a wrecker. Now, he's an interior guy, so you're not going to see Hawes on him a lot. The Ravens, I will say, have a barn full of guys that I think could be good and are deep, but don't have, it's not like they got Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau like the Giants have.
Exactly. I don't think he's really gone up against anybody insane yet.
The story of the Bills season right there, except for Baltimore.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, the fact that he's still a rookie and the fact that we're talking him up this much does scare me a little bit, but I don't think he's going to have this big drop off. You see guys like what Thad, you said on Monday, what you think Daniel Jones could have. a big drop off. You see guys get talked up, and we've seen it before. Guys get talked up early in the year, and then all of a sudden they're nowhere by the end of the year. I don't think Jackson Hollis will have that big of a drop off, but I do think this not that this is the best we'll see of him all season, but I do think that we maybe are getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Well, go back to the joke I made. You know, I mean, like the joke is made because it feels like that's where the conversation is at. That this guy, and look, I will be the first one to tell you, watching him on film, he's been amazing to watch. He's been so good. As someone who was a tight end in high school for a team that threw the ball like as a trick play, like a pass was a trick play, I love watching this guy block. He's been really that good. The other thing, too, when you talked to him yesterday, he said, I think blocking is fun, and I like going up against, and you saw this on BKL Nightly in our story yesterday, I like going up against guys who are bigger than me, which is pretty much everybody, because it's an awesome challenge. So I think he's got the right attitude to, you know, progress and handle the wild praise he's been getting from everybody else. Speaking of handling things, it's been kind of a weird start for this season in that we're talking about like what to talk about, and there just ain't much. You know, everything's great. The Bills are 3-0. The game they got this weekend seems like as soft as it gets in the NFL. You know, your closest rivals are like trying to avoid going 1-3 this week.
Crazy.
You know, Caleb, where maybe this might be more of a Bills fan question than a Bills player question, but how good is it right now to be a Bills fan?
It's good. It feels good. It feels great. You know, it's the first half of that Ravens game was tough, and then ever since then, it feels like it's been great. I will say though that it's, you know, as a Bills fan, you've been in this spot before. I've been in this spot of like, oh, everything's really, really good, and then sometimes the wheels tend to fall off, or things here or there, other teams start to jump up. But I will say that the fact that the Ravens and the Chiefs are both kind of struggling right now, you look at some other teams around the league that maybe you expected to be really good. Obviously, you never hope for injuries, but with Joe Burrow out in Cincinnati, that kind of opens up a hole. But I think it's been really good, but that's also when, doesn't matter what team you're talking about, you can't get too high or else the low is going to be really, really low. So I think the Bills, and I think that Sean McDermott and this coaching staff has really built that, where they're not going to get too in their heads and they're just going to keep playing football. And as long as they do that, I think it could continue and be a really, really good season.
Yeah, to the question I made, or the point I made before, I don't think this is a Bills player coach issue. I think it's just, you know, how great is it for the fans? And you know, Rachel, you know, fans should certainly enjoy this, and I don't think there's any, you know, reason to be worried for the time being. But in terms of like when you root for a team and it goes this well this early, there's always the, you know, where's the other shoe going to drop?
There. I'm a Cleveland fan.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, you know, so it's a brand new, it's a totally unfamiliar topic for you.
Yes.
But from the outside, you know, I guess, you know, give me your take on where this has gone through 3 weeks for the Bills.
I feel like from the perspective of the Bills, it's great. I mean, they're looking to be 4-0 this weekend, but I feel like we're living in a world where either Baltimore or Kansas City is going to be 1-3 after this weekend, and I feel like for Bills fans, that even might be more exciting. I mean, adding on to the Bills they took down the Ravens, and now they're coming on to this easy stretch of the season, and which is honestly most of their season. But I mean, just from an outside perspective, it's weird because we don't have a lot to talk about, like we've said over and over again. With like the Bills are doing so well, the things that we're critiquing, which is like loosely critiquing, are kind of just things that we have to find because the Bills have been doing so well. So for Caleb's perspective of being a fan and just my perspective of never really rooting for a team that has had such a strong start, it's cool. It's fun to be able to see what's happening. And like I said, from the perspective of the Chiefs and the Ravens not doing so hot, just adds a whole nother level of what this Bills team could be.
I don't know if anybody's noticing I'm playing with the lights here right now.
Yeah,
I can't help it. I'm having some fun.
Changing.
I know. Trying to even things out during the show. Too many buttons on this controls panel, let me tell you. And, you know, to that point, Rachel's making a very good point about the Bills, and I'm just chilling. This is where the Bills are at right now. Like, the conversation is not driving towards anything controversial. I was telling you guys, I was listening to like a Jets podcast, a Texans podcast. Things are way different in those conversations, you know, in terms of how much angst and concern there are than there is with the Bills so far. That being said, let's jump into our BKL roundtable here. Let's start with this weekend. And, you know, the Bills are, what, a 17-point favorite? I think it still is, something like that. What, Caleb, and I'll start with you, is the bar for a good game for the Bills this weekend?
Yeah, to start, we kind of talked about how not here, and before the show, we kind of talked about third down defense and how the Saints are pretty low down. Would we say 26? Maybe was that the number that we said?
Yes,
They're very low on third down conversion. So I think for starters, shut down third downs. Like I want to see a handful converted, like 3 to 4 at the very, very most. So really shut down third down, and then just continue to let that run game go, continue to try to be as balanced as an offense as possible. I think this is a place where Josh Allen could let it rip a little bit, but he doesn't need to. I don't think he'll need to at really any point. So I'd like to see maybe a deep ball or two early on, and then just when hopefully the game starts to get pulled away a little bit, just let James cook.
Rachel?
Yeah, I think Caleb stole every single point that I was
So
just about to make.
So sorry.
I think definitely it lies on the defensive side for me, just coming off of last week and exactly like Caleb said, the third down defense. The Saints were 5 of 15 converting on third downs against Seattle, which we all know that was a 44-13 loss for them. And so I think if the Bills have a game or are set up to have a game to bounce back from their lack of the third down defense last week, I think this is a good week to do it. So for me, that's kind of what I want to see. And then exactly the same thing on offense. We know Josh Allen didn't convert a pass, I think 10 plus yards last week, or complete a pass. So I would just like to see that, but that's not really a measure of success. I think that's just more of just wanting to see something maybe more exciting, quote unquote, from the offense. Maybe just like less of getting the ball in these long drives down the field and just see, maybe a deep ball to Keon Coleman. But that's not a measure of success. That's just
a measure of fun.
A measure of fun, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think they can do that with this game coming up.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with hoping for a little more fun. I'm kind of with you guys too. I do want to see. I want to see the Bills win up front. Because one way or another, it's going to come down to, at the end of the year, can the Bills block when it matters, especially for the run game, protecting Josh Allen, all those things, but I think the run game more so. And can they create problems with their front four? And we've seen measures of that, throughout the season, but in a soft, in a softball spot like this, I want to see those guys up front, win big against. I don't think the Chiefs or the Saints are poor offensively or defensively on the line of scrimmage. I think it's a reasonable test. I think their questions are quarterback and back end of the defense. So being able to make this happen, I think, is where I would start with. All right, number 2 now in terms of the BKL roundtable. We talked a lot about Spencer Hawes here and what he's done to start this season. Jackson Hawes, my bad. He's got a unique job in terms of being just a blocking tight end. So when it comes to unique minor jobs, is that the best one in football? Is that the coolest one? If you could do like one of those minor jobs, is that the one you would want? Rachel, let you go first here.
That might be the one that I would want. I think kind of similar maybe that we didn't discuss would be fullback. Maybe, possibly. I mean, just because I know Caleb has his answer, and Caleb has a good answer, so I wish he would have gone first. But that's the only thing I can really think of is just being someone who can go out there and just really your only job is to be physical. And I guess fullback. I remember Reggie Gilliam during a training camp. He was like, fullbacks matter. He was running off the field. He was like, fullbacks matter, fullbacks matter. So
and he has so much fun, too.
And he does, exactly. So I feel like just maybe that would be the position of you're out there, you're doing your job, you're having fun, but like the eyes really aren't on you when you're, doing what you need to do. But Caleb has a better answer. He can go.
Go ahead, Caleb.
I have 2. First one is kind of along the same lines as like a blocking tight end, or even yours, Rachel, fullback, a long snapper. There's not much of a. You're really only out there for a handful of plays. You're not doing too much. And you still kind of get, if you're one of those guys like kind of like Jackson Hawes is, that likes to get physical, you're right there. You're getting physical with whoever's trying to rush that punt. And also most of the long snappers that I've seen are kind of just cool guys, and they're just kind of there to have fun. That's one of the positions where you really only have one job, so you're just you don't have to worry about too much. And then my other one is a gadget wide receiver. That like 4th or 5th on the depth chart kind of guy who his plays are set for him and they're fun plays. You think about like the trick plays, or even just like an Elijah Moore, like an end around type of play. Those are kind of seen as a little bit more fun, and those are really the only plays that like a 5th or 6th guy down gadget wide receiver. That's the only plays that they're really in for, the kind of trick plays.
And they those are plays that easily can break. Those are kind of things. You're not in there to be a guy who's going to run 3 yards into the line of scrimmage. You're there for, if this works,
it's a touchdown.
You're still running. That kind of thing. I'm also with you on the long snapper. That's a great call. Reed Ferguson is one of the cool guys that you talk to for Buffalo. We backup quarterback, right? I think we brought that one up. So that's definitely high on my list too in terms of easy, fun jobs when it comes to minor stuff in football. All right, last one on the round table is a question that I think a lot of Bills fans have been debating amongst themselves over the last few weeks, and that is Chiefs and Ravens play this week. Who do you prefer if you're a Bills fan to win this game? Caleb, I can let you have this one first.
Yeah, so I think like if you look at it statistically, I believe if Baltimore wins, then both the Chiefs and the Ravens are 3 games back from the Bills.
Correct.
So it makes the most sense statistically.
If you include the tiebreaker.
Yes, yeah. It makes the most sense statistically to have the Ravens win. But in my thought, like my way of looking at it is I think the Ravens have looked a little bit better, just like by the eye test. Obviously, their 2 losses are to the Bills and the Lions. The Chiefs lost to the Chargers, and who was the second team the Chiefs lost to? I'm now blinking. Philly. So still 2 very, very good teams. But when you just do the eye test, I think Baltimore's looked a lot better. And Baltimore also has the much easier remaining schedule when you look at like the football, like the power index, or even when you just look at record for the remaining teams that they play. So because of that, I'm honestly going to go with a Chiefs win. Just because I think if there's one team that can get really hot and really, really good going into the playoffs, right now my thought is that Baltimore. I know the Chiefs have done it in the past, and the Chiefs also have a lot of returning players. 2 of their best wide receivers aren't with them right now. So I know all that stuff, but really, like in my gut, I just feel like the Ravens are the better all-around team. So I'm going to go with a Chiefs win.
Rachel?
I'm going to go with the Ravens win because, to your point, the Bills have that tie-breaking win over the Ravens already, and we know how Bills-Chiefs goes just throughout the years. It's always back and forth, and I feel like just the general idea of the Chiefs starting 1-3, not that I don't think the Chiefs will come back. I think they'll get hot, maybe even after this weekend and, go on a run and get it together, but I think just the general thought of the Chiefs starting 1-3, the Bills already have their win over the Ravens, and then the November 2nd, I think the Bills and the Chiefs meet.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
I just feel like I'd rather have the Ravens beat the Chiefs, and just because we know that the Bills have already beat them in the regular season, and for just down the line and standings and everything like that, I think would rather see the Ravens win this weekend.
That is the logical play, because if the Chiefs win, then they stay 2 games back and have the ability to, with a head-to-head win, get within 1 and a tiebreaker in a few weeks. And I understand that thinking, but I'm with Caleb. I am team Chiefs win this week because the schedule that the Ravens have is the thing. So here's the Ravens schedule. You guys listen to this. After the Chiefs game, and I'm going to just fast forward to the end, they play in Green Bay week 17, okay? So between week 4 and week 17, tell me if you hear a loss on this schedule. Home for Houston, home for the Rams, home for Chicago, at Miami, at Minnesota, at Cleveland, home for the Jets, home for Cincy, home for Pittsburgh, at Cincy, home for New England.
No.
Exactly.
Depends on if Joe Burrow's back for the at Cincy, but I don't think he will be. And then maybe...
Hey, don't count on Cleveland. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I mean,
honestly.
They do play the Ravens.
They were not supposed to be the Packers.
Yeah.
And they do play the Ravens.
Maybe at home against the Rams.
Yeah.
Maybe at home against the Rams.
But if they win that game and they win this Chiefs game, the idea of the Ravens going to Green Bay at 13-2 is distinctly possible. And the Bills would still have the tiebreaker. But now if the Ravens can figure out a way to win in Green Bay, which we know they can, the Bills can't lose more than 2 games all year. And look, the Bills might go 16-1 or something ridiculous. But to your point, the Chiefs still have the Chargers to play. They'll play Denver twice. They've got a game with Detroit themselves after this Baltimore game. Mm-hmm. So there's more landmines on the Chiefs schedule. And the Bills can handle the Chiefs themselves. So I am certainly team Chiefs this week in terms of the winner, knocking off the Ravens and preventing Baltimore from just gaining a gigundous head of steam going forward. All right, time for our predictions for this week. Spoiler alert, nobody picked the Saints, but everybody has a unique score and a unique take in the game. So, Rachel, you can go first with your pick, Bills and Saints this weekend.
My final score is 38-16. I was really back and forth with only saying the Saints were going to score 13, but then I was like, last week they scored 13. Maybe we'll give them an extra field goal just, for good measure. I mean, like we said, we don't think this is going to be close. Last week against Miami, though, I think it was closer than we thought it was going to be, but I don't really see this offense doing what Miami did on Thursday. So yeah, I mean, I think the Bills will take a comfortable win. I don't think they'll really have any problem getting the ball down the field. And I think the Saints secondary is kind of a weakness of theirs. So I think the Bills offense will be just fine pushing 40 points. And yeah, Bills 38-16.
Caleb?
I would love to see the Bills get a 20-point victory, but unfortunately, I just don't think this is the type of team that once they get ahead, they just keep going. And also, the Seahawks put up 44. A lot of that was because they made a ton of special teams plays. And I'd love to see the Bills do that. I just don't know if they will. So because of that, I've got 31-16, same score as Rachel. I think they're a decent team that can get a drive going. I think they can get into field goal range a couple times, but I'm really hoping that the Bills defense just locks them down. And then, like I said, I think the Bills will get up early, and then I think they'll just lean on the run game.
They might, yeah. And here's the thing about the Saints covering. It was what your score is, 31-16. Of the teams who have gotten blown out the last 2 years, I looked this up last night. Teams have lost by 28 or more. The next week, it was about 35 of them. 2/3 of them do cover the spread. So picking a cover from a gambling point of view is the right call. I, however, will not be picking a cover. I'm going to go 40-13. I just feel like the Saints going to, as Josh Reed talked about yesterday in BKL Nightly, going to Seattle, cross country, then going to Buffalo again. That's a tough ask. Spencer Rattler, not a rookie, but really from a point of view of being a starter, he's a rookie. Something Sean McDermott defenses have just gobbled up over the years. This does not feel like a game that will ever be close or ever in doubt. Maybe, like you said, Caleb, before, it's the NFL, you never know. I'm not going to go that way. I think the Bills get to 40. I think they hold the Saints to the 13, and I think they win this game pretty easy. All right, that's going to do it for us here on BKL Nightly. We'll be back again on Sunday to recap this one. It shouldn't be a whole lot of crazy stuff to talk about. And then we'll be into Patriots Week, getting ready for week number 5. So for Caleb Carr and Rachel Liebert, I'm Thad Brown. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you again over the weekend.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.